If you love podcasting as much as I do, you may be considering starting your own. Starting a podcast has been one of the best decisions I have ever made, but getting started can feel overwhelming. Buzzsprout is the easiest and most professional way to start a podcast. Buzzsprout has helped over 100,000 people launch their own podcasts, including me. Buzzsprout will launch your show on all of the major podcast platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Play, to name a few. You also get a podcast website, audio players that can be dropped into other websites, and stats of who is listening, and so much more. Buzzsprout also publishes blog posts, podcasts, and YouTube videos every week. They are great tools and have useful information from expert podcasters. To start your own podcast and get a $20 Amazon gift card, follow the link in our show notes. This lets Buzzsprout know that I sent you, and it supports my show. Buzzsprout, the easiest way to start a podcast.
Crime, Wine, and Chaos contains adult language and graphic content. Listener discretion is advised.
Hey listeners, I'm Amber.
And I'm Jeremy.
And this is Crime, Wine, and Chaos. Hello.
Hi.
What's up? Hi.
Little do your listeners know that we just had a whole ass therapy session before we hit record. So
we did. I feel refreshed. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Because we're both therapists. We're professionals.
Well, listen, I like to pretend to be a doctor, and I have a handful of armchair therapists in my life that I lean on, and I'm sorry that you're one of them. But
hey,
that's
no,
just how
you know
it goes.
What? With great power comes great responsibility.
You're very wise.
Right. I'm a
You're
wise
very
guy.
wise. Yes. Wow. Good for you.
You already
how
regret
are
this.
you?
I'm okay.
No.
Yeah. I'm wearing this
No
fantastic
regrets.
shirt that you bought me. I'm feeling myself.
You look dashing.
I needed an excuse to wear the shirt around the place, and since I am a gentleman of leisure, I thought, I should do
A gentleman of leisure?
That's right.
I've got this dowdy number on today that I fully wore to work with, and
Well, I mean, at your job, you routinely get like sneezed on by children or something.
I do.
Is there throw up? I don't know what happens there.
There's throw up. There's a lot of drama. I've got one more week of that, and I'm kind of sad because the tiny humans are adorable.
They do have their charm from time to time.
They keep it chill. I can have a conversation with a tiny human all day.
Uh-huh.
No drama.
No.
Just super chill.
They're just like, hey, I noticed you're wearing a dowdy thing. And you're like, yep.
Yep. And then,
Sure
a whole
am. And then they throw up on it, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Super chill.
I will say, though, that the principal sent out a farewell email to the entire staff that basically said I was moving on to pursue my band and my podcast. And so now we have people, a whole lot of elementary school teachers that have now downloaded the EP on Spotify.
You know what? That's how it happens. That's called networking. That's a network. We're building a network of grade school teachers.
I know. One of the paraeducators are like, do you think your band would want to come and do an assembly? I'm like, I don't think it's that kind of music.
Well, it's funny because back when we were in Spokane, Celeste and I were doing like this first Friday or Thursday, anyway, some citywide event, and we were going to play this little gig at the it was the library. And we walked in, and there was this whole big table of fifth graders, we'll say. They were about fifth grade age. And she got she freaked out a little bit. She's like, oh my God, and you have to change this word and this word. And she's telling me like, you're going to have to censor it. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And she's like, no, really? I'm like, okay. No, you're going to have, I'm like, finally, I'm like, I can see them. I'm looking right
I have eyeballs.
I know they're sitting there.
Oh my God.
They're right in
you don't
front.
understand. Oh my God.
It's like, yes, I'm not going to get on stage and say fuck in front of a bunch of fifth graders if I don't have to.
Although they might fucking love you if you
They probably would. They probably, oh my God, I saw a rock concert today.
Yeah, this guy's a rock star.
Yeah.
He's a fuck. Yeah,
he's
totally.
so hard. Yeah.
Wow. I love all that.
Yeah.
So what you drinking there, brother?
Oh, I have here a Dante Pinot Noir from the Michael Potzon Winery in Napa, California. A little bit about the wine. It was named after Michael Pozzon's eldest son, Dante. And their website says the 2019 Dante Pinot Noir is bright and extroverted from the very start. Aromas of fresh, juicy strawberries leap from the glass, along with spicy red plum and a hint of lightly toasted oak. In the mouth, the wine is rich with buoyant flavors of strawberry jam and toasted marshmallow with touches of light roast coffee and vanilla bean. And you can visit michaelpozzonwinery.com to learn more about their Dante collection of wines.
Well, holy shit. That was very thorough. Is it delicious?
Yeah, it's a Pinot Noir. They're all delicious.
Do you feel extroverted after you've had some?
I guess we'll find out.
Oh my God. Well, that sounds amazing. And I'm doing the rare drinking a white, and only because it's open, because I made a white sauce last night and now I have an open white that I need to drink. This is Jennifer Pfeiffer's Rocket Like a Redhead. It's a Sauvignon Blanc from 2021. It's got like a nutty flavor. It's an Australian wine. It is delicious.
And nutty.
And also makes a very fine butter white wine sauce.
Yeah, this Pinot that I have here is very likely going to get cooked down into a wine reduction syrup and used as a dessert syrup for some seasonal strawberries and peaches and things like that.
Well, that sounds real fancy. Are you bringing that to band practice, or?
I mean, I guess I bought this bottle and then I went online and looked at recipes for wine reduction sauces. So,
ooh,
yeah, God. I did that, and then I'm like, oh, there's dessert sauces. Well, clearly no other sauce exists.
Obs. That sounds amazing.
So I've got extra sugar. I have to do something with it.
Of course.
Yeah.
Let me see. Well, that sounds amazing. Quick look at my calendar. This episode comes out on October 5th, and Tinfoil Top Hat, or possibly just Paul and Amber show on October 7th at the Vessel.
Mm-hmm.
And then another show at the Rendezvous in Belltown on the 16th. Yes?
That sounds right. Yeah.
All right. So come check it out. Other local musicians, support local art. It's important. If you're in the Seattle area, come check us out.
Word.
Linwood, Seattle. Yeah.
Any place in Western Washington.
Mm-hmm. There's something for everyone. If you're on the north end, if you're in the city, you can make a show. Yes?
Yep. Invite us to your house.
I love all this.
We'll come play on your deck.
Oh my God. I dream of the day that we get hired for a house party.
There are ways we can go down that route. Why have I not done that? You're asking.
Why aren't we doing that?
Because as soon as I started researching that, something pandemic, and I never got back to it.
Fucking pandemic.
I know. Harshen my mellow.
Well, what else you got? You got anything before you dive into your crime that I'm chomping at the bit to learn about?
I don't think so. I got the party lights on. I got my little lantern over here that I bought from that gal on the street who immediately recognized it on our Instagram page, and she's like, "Oh my God, that's mine! I made that." So she's very sweet.
It's beautiful, though.
Yeah, I love this thing. I've been trying to
very cool.
I've been trying to chase her down and buy a couple others because Gary saw this and was immediately nostalgic for his childhood. So,
where was she selling? Was it a festival or?
Yeah, well, okay. So I there's this thing that I do, and I don't do it on purpose. I randomly run into street fairs that I didn't know were happening.
I love it.
It's a thing that I just do all the time. So I was heading down to the International District with my neighbor downstairs, Shin, and we were going for Chinese food because he can order in Mandarin, and that makes things better. And so normally I would take the train down there, but time constraints were such that we're like, okay, well, whatever, let's just drive. And I got there and there was a street fair. I'm like, holy crap. So waited through that mess for a while, finally found a place to park. And so we're walking toward the restaurant, and there's this young lady there, and she's got these lanterns strewn about the sidewalk, and she's selling them for like $2. And I'm like, oh, those are really cool. So Shinshin bought me a lantern.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you made a new friend.
And I made a new friend.
That's awesome. And delicious Mandarin food. That sounds like
well,
a good
you'd
day.
think so, but the restaurant was closed. Anyway, that's a whole other.
Oh, that's a different thing.
We did
Okay,
get free
got it.
chicken nuggets and candy in the street fair, so it wasn't a total wash.
There's nothing better than accidentally ending up on a street fair,
Right?
You know?
I don't hate it. Yeah, I don't hate that at all.
Oh my God!
Ooh,
Well, I
random street
love
fair.
that for you.
So I've got a crime story here.
I know. I'm anxious.
From some crimes that happened, and I guess we're launching into season 3 here. Is that what we're doing?
Oh my God. Thank you for reminding me. Obviously, I'm new here. This is the first episode of season 3. It is the anniversary of Crime, Wine, and Chaos, and I'm stoked that you're here for this.
Likewise.
So this is a big deal.
Yeah.
Likewise.
Yeah. So yeah, season 3, diving into autumn here.
I fucking love it so much. Spooky season.
Yeah, I don't have a spooky story, but I will leave you with a cold, lumpy feeling at the end of the story. So
Thank you.
That's as good as I can do. So like, I mean, you know how I get on here and like laugh about murder and stuff. I'm just gonna like change it up a bit and like leave you feeling horrid going into fall season. So
Okay, thank you for
there you
that.
go.
I'm
That's
ready.
it. Yeah. Show's over, everyone.
The end.
Have fun with your cyanide laced Halloween candy. Whatever.
God.
So the story's a bit of a rabbit hole, as these stories tend to be, and as they tend to be, the farther you dive down the rabbit hole, the curiouser and curiouser things get, and this is no different. So I should also say that every single person who was following this story in real time has their own version of how these events unfolded. And if any of them happen to stumble onto this podcast, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of that's not how it happened.
Got it.
But for those of us who weren't following the story in real time, this is the best we can piece together because a lot of the dates have been scrubbed. A lot of the facts have been scrubbed. A lot of what remains are just screenshots that someone bothered to take.
Wow. Ooh.
I should also note here that no one in this story has been charged with a crime. No one is even being investigated for a crime. But there is no doubt that crimes were committed. It is impossible for the events in this story to have unfolded as they did without quite a bit of criminal activity along the way. Nobody disputes that.
Ooh.
That's a certainty, but the cops aren't investigating anyone, and by the end of the story, you can make your own conclusions as to why.
I am so intrigued. Okay.
So the first thing I'm going to do is put some bookends around the story, and the bookends are these. Jack Chapman was born on February 13th, 1990 in Melbourne, Australia. 28 years later, Tank Heathcliff Hafertepen died on Monday, October 15th, 2018 in Seattle, Washington at 7:12 a.m. Those are our bookends. Jack Chapman was a young man from Australia, and he was a young gay man from Australia. And like many gay men around the world, his access to gay culture was mostly online. In fact, the only reason I even know about the story is because my friend and partner Gary grew up in Malaysia, where it is illegal to be gay.
Holy shit. Wait, it's a fucking illegal to be gay in Malaysia?
Yeah. Being gay is punishable by up to 20 years in prison just for existing.
Okay. One, I feel like an asshole that I didn't know that. And two, oh my
Theocracies are not awesome. They're not.
Holy
Yeah.
fucking shit.
Yeah,
Okay.
Malaysia
Okay.
is a Islamic theocracy. Yeah.
Wow. Great.
So anyway, his only access to gay culture growing up was through the window of the internet. And he had to be careful even at that.
Wow.
Because you don't want to leave any kind of digital trail of that even.
No shit.
Yeah, it's not an awesome spot for for a young gay man. So in Melbourne, Jack had entered a bear pageant at the age of 22. And for anybody who doesn't know, bears are big, hunky, hairy gay men.
Perfect.
Yes. He didn't win, but he was a fan favorite. And in 2008, he began hosting a podcast called The Cubby House. So, fellow podcaster. And he quickly gained a substantial online following in the bear community. People really liked him.
No.
Sometime in early 2010, Jack met a man through Tumblr by the name of Dylan Hafertepen. And they began a long-distance relationship. I should also say that I'm pronouncing Hafertepen just by reading it. I have no idea how the hell this name is actually pronounced, so we're going to call him Hafertepen.
Perfect.
It's like, okay.
Sure.
And maybe... Yeah, I know it sounds like a Dr. Seuss name that I've just made up, but no. So they began a long-distance relationship. This was back when Tumblr still allowed not safe for work content. Dylan was actually quite a celebrity in the gay internet culture at the time. He went by the name Noodles and Beef. That's right. Noodles
I love it.
And beef. Yep.
Good for him.
I don't know where he came up with it, but I keep imagining it's probably nude meat. That's just
Sure. Or a nice hearty bowl of ramen.
I mean, who doesn't like a nice hearty bowl of ramen? That is some
I don't know.
That is some wholesome eating there.
It really is.
Yep. I'm glad I already had dinner, otherwise I'd want ramen now. I
Me
want
too.
ramen now.
I do too. Let's DoorDash. Keep
That's
going.
it. Okay, pause, get some ramen. So he had a huge Tumblr and Twitter following, and Jack was ecstatic to actually get to meet him and chat with him online. Probably a little starstruck. Who wouldn't be? And Dylan even flew out to visit Jack in Melbourne several times over the next few years. And here's the line we've all been waiting for. Dylan was charming and charismatic and good looking.
Uh-oh.
And anybody who's ever listened to a true crime broadcast, oh, yeah, we know where this is going, and this motherfucker.
Yeah. Charming is never good.
Right.
Charming is never good. And also, sorry, where's Dylan located?
San Francisco.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Sorry. Anyway.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And no, there are these two, they're these two descriptors that you never want to hear in a true crime podcast. One of them is charming, charismatic, and good looking. And the other was, he's quiet, never bothered anybody, kept to himself. It's like, oh, this isn't going.
Didn't have any friends.
Didn't have any friends. Yeah. I just heard him building something. I thought yeah. You don't want those.
Oh no. Got it.
But Dylan's the charming and charismatic and good looking kind. He had a baby face, well-kept beard, deep brown eyes, and like these chipmunk cheeks when he would smile. And he was incredibly good looking. I'm not going to lie. And Jack fell in love with Dylan. Though one of Jack's friends later described him as, quote, a little bit lost. He was a bit unlucky in love. He was always kind of looking for his place.
Oh.
So it bears mentioning at this point that Dylan was a member of a particular subculture of the gay BDSM community that involves dominance and submissives known as masters and pups. It's a kink, and there's
pups.
There's a pecking order. There are alphas and betas. The master generally, quote unquote, owns the pup, who will often wear dog collars and dog masks and submit to their masters the way a dog will submit to its owner. It's an arrangement that's eroticized and fetishized. In 2012, Dylan, quote unquote, collared Jack, initiating him into romantic servitude with a literal chain and lock around his neck. So I'll head this one off at the pass because it should be pointed out that this ought to be entirely consensual, as it is illegal to actually own other human beings. It's a fetish.
Sure.
But consent is still consent. These are grown men agreeing to play these roles. If at any point someone is not allowed to say no and walk away, then there is no longer consent.
Yeah, well said. And no fetish shaming. Fetishes are
No, that's
totally
fine.
okay as long as consent is
consent
present. Yeah, totally
consent
fine.
is consent no matter what your deal is.
Yeah. Exactly. Yep.
So Dylan was a master. Who, in fact, side note, since we're not fetish shaming, there's a reason Gary knew about this story. He follows these people online. It's his jam. So,
no shame.
good for you, man.
There's something out there for everyone.
Exactly. You know? Yeah, exactly. No judgment at all. So Dylan was a master who had several pups who were submissive to him. He was really, really good at social media. He was consistent with posting quality content that resonated with the kink community, even before he turned into his own brand. And so were his pups. They were very good at social media, good at posting, until he would reel them back in as necessary to preserve his own image.
Wow.
In 2015, Jack won the immigration lottery and flew over from Australia to be one of Dylan's 5 pups. He made posts about how excited he was to be moving in with his master Dylan. He left behind his mother and his autistic brother Ben. His father had already passed away several years prior, which will become an important factoid. So put a pin in that.
Pin has been put.
Good. Jack Chapman had his
Good.
Jack Chapman had his name legally changed to Tank Heathcliff Hafertepen to show that he was the pup of
Tank?
his master. Tank Heathcliff Hafertepen. Yep.
That doesn't scream pup to me. That screams master if you're a tank.
You know, I don't know things.
Okay. Yeah.
He was a big man. He was actually bigger than Dylan. So
Oh, okay. Okay.
yeah,
I get it.
Yeah, he was a big guy. Yeah, when we think like master and pup,
Got it.
like
All right.
in fact, my initial image when Gary first told me about this story, my initial image was of a much smaller, skinnier, twinkier kind of guy. Because when I think master and pup, an image comes into my mind. Clearly, I'm not part of the community, so what the fuck do I mean, the image was based on nothing but my own preconceptions. And so when I finally saw pictures,
that makes sense.
Yeah, when I finally saw pictures of Jack, I'm like, oh, not what I was expecting. This guy's huge. He's a big guy. Sweet looking guy too.
The tank is the pup,
yeah,
and that's what we're doing.
yeah, very sweet looking man, nice smile. Okay. Yeah, he looked like a nice guy. At the time the group was living in San Francisco, their online posts seemed to idealize the polyamorous relationship they were in. But even then there were chips in the facade. Chips like posts of Jack crying because he's a piece of shit who was totally in the wrong for defying his master in some way. Those are posts that Dylan made him put up. In 2016, after going into a friend's hot tub without Dylan's permission, Tank posted a picture of his tear-streamed face along with an apology to Dylan that read, quote, "Let's get a few things established. I am shit. I am a shit person. I do horrible and inexcusable things. I am dishonest. I am deceitful. I am a coward. I hurt my master. I don't deserve love. I don't deserve forgiveness. I only deserve to suffer." That was the apology.
Holy shit.
And so the scene was aware, like, these posts were not just part of the kink. Like, the scene was aware these are red flags.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just going to completely be transparent about my ignorance and say, are we still sort of playing the role, or are these genuine?
They were genuine. Yeah,
No.
yeah. The kink community was
We're
like,
genuinely upset.
Hell no. Yeah. From what they could tell, Jack was not just being submissive. He was being like legitimately traumatized and terrorized.
Oh no.
Because dominating and
Yeah.
submitting are not the same as abuse. And the scene down there were not having it. They were not into this.
Yeah.
And somewhere in that, like Tank knew. So shortly after the hot tub incident, Tank messaged a friend saying, "Keep it to yourself, but for my own sake, I need to develop an exit strategy. I'm scared of him. Also, I know in leaving, I won't be able to talk to my other partners." Because keep in mind, like, this was a polyamorous relationship.
Oh, shit.
Like, Tank was very fond of these other guys.
Right.
Like, they weren't just like other dudes living in the house. They were like, he loved these guys. Tank also told the same friend that he had begun emotionally distancing himself from Dylan because he was filled with so much shame he was going to have a nervous breakdown or dissociate from himself.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Poor Tank.
So he's like this is just infiltrated his whole life, not just during the times when they're supposed to be. Okay. Yeah. So this is not fucking cool.
Yeah. This is, it gets, the rabbit hole goes deeper. It gets worse. It just gets worse from here.
Okay. Oh no. All right. Okay. Yeah. I'm ready.
So like the receipts of Dylan's emotional abuse go on and on. Those text threads between Tank and his friends still exist, and Tank's friends have posted some of them online for people to see. Not in their entirety. Some of them are still very personal. So the online kink community knew ever since the crew was in San Francisco that something was off. Despite their perfectly curated life, Dylan seemed abusive, and Kevin Reeder, who was the co-host of Tank's podcast, called the relationship between Tank and Dylan toxic. One of Dylan's former partners described Dylan as manipulative.
Yikes.
So it also bears mentioning at this point that in addition to being charming, charismatic, and good looking, wink, Dylan also had Google money.
Mm-hmm.
He was a senior software engineer and developer at Google, and by some accounts, he was pulling in close to $600,000 a year.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and that's going to be important for Dylan, not just, obviously, because, for the money, but for the leverage that it gives him. Buying them things, paying the rent, getting the lease in his name so he could boot them out or threaten to boot them out at any sign of disobedience. So he used his money as a control mechanism.
I was just going to say, this guy has the upper hand at everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it gets worse.
Yikes.
Speaking of upper hands.
Uh-oh.
Dylan made Tank sign a contract. And while I could not find a copy of the exact contract, some of the particulars were cataloged in interviews, tweets, and podcasts. The contract listed Tank's rules and responsibilities, including that he was to follow all of his master's body goals, that he was to maintain specific proportions and weight, and that he submit to all orders for body modifications, including piercings, tattoos, scrotal saline inflation, as well as body growth supplements, including steroids and human growth hormones, quote, in accordance to the wishes of the master. Some pups even got tattoos claiming to be Dylan's property, including Tank, who had a tattoo on his back that read property of Master Dylan right beneath Dylan's zodiac sign.
Oh my God.
Yeah, this guy's a piece of shit.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
People who did see the contract say there was a clause in there that made Dylan not responsible for any negative outcomes that could result from the body modifications Dylan encouraged his pups to make. In other words, like to be with Dylan, you had to sign a waiver. And if you have to sign a waiver to be with somebody, you should probably just pass on that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
seeing
saying?
some red flags here. Wow. No shit.
It's like, hey, you want to come stay with me? Here's a waiver that says if anything bad happens to you, I'm not responsible. Okay, no. Yeah.
I'm curious to see, well, I'm sure you're going to tell me, but this isn't like a legally binding contract. Dylan's just freestyling his shit, right?
So it's not,
this
of course
isn't
not.
Like
you
filed somewhere.
No, yeah.
Okay.
But whether or not a contract is legally binding and whether or not you can convince other people that it's legally binding are two very different things.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, I'm picking up what you're putting down.
And if you have leverage over those people, that even if the contract's not legally binding, you can throw them out on the street with nothing. It's effectively binding.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. All right.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
So, Dylan was into body modification, using certain techniques and substances to achieve the idealized masculine form. And by idealized masculine form, I want you to think Gaston. Not the live action Gaston, like the cartoon Gaston. Like we're pushing those boundaries.
So literally unobtainable because it's a drawing.
Correct.
Got
Correct.
it. Okay.
He used everything from steroid use to silicone injection, and he wanted his group to do them too. There are screenshots of tweets where Dylan admits to using, quote, super duper illegal performance enhancing drugs, though he doesn't specify in the tweet which drugs. One of the things Dylan was into was injecting silicone into his scrotum to make his testicles look bigger. And by bigger, I mean fucking massive. Like, has to get custom underwear made. Massive.
Okay, so I'm going to just flare my ignorance here. Obviously, I've heard of like penis pumps, whatever.
Yeah.
What in the world is the purpose behind large testicles? What am I missing?
I mean, what's the purpose? It's an aesthetic.
What? Why would that? For what? Like, just literally, like, I like how that looks.
Yeah, for them, it was a matter of like doing things that made them look absolutely hyper masculine. I mean, literally, like,
so it's not functional in any way.
No, not functional at all. It's definitely like we're going to make ourselves look like drawings. Yeah.
Okay, so in the same way that a woman would get like lip injections.
Yes. Yeah, and you would look at her and be like,
"Got it. Okay.
Do your lips still work? Like, what's going on?
That doesn't look
that.
I know.
Can you drink from a
Are
straw?
you okay? Yeah. Got it.
Are you? Do you need an EpiPen? Have you been stung by a bee? Yeah, all of that stuff.
Do you need an EpiPen?
I mean,
Fuck.
right? Do you need an EpiPen for your balls? Nobody knows.
Yeah, so it's not doing anything.
No, it's just enlargement. Yeah.
Okay.
That's it.
Got it. Okay.
So he insisted that his pups get silicone injections in their scrotums as well, because of course, he can't be the only person in the room with huge balls. That's embarrassing.
Huge balls. Yeah, that is.
So at one point when a follower asked Tank how big he intended to go with his scrotal injections, he replied, "Master will decide when enough is enough."
Uh-oh.
So Dylan would be the one to decide whether Tank kept getting the silicone injections. But it got them attention. Like, there are photos of the entire group online with like absolutely cartoonishly large genitals. Yeah.
Okay. On the only thing that I can attach this to, being a woman without testicles, is being large chested.
Mm-hmm.
And it's incredibly uncomfortable.
Right.
It's uncomfortable.
Oh.
It's sweaty. You've got to get like the hold them up real high bras, which are never the cute ones.
Yeah.
I mean, what?
I've seen.
This sounds very uncomfortable.
I have seen Tank's nudes, and there's no way in hell.
Uh-oh.
Like, I'm like, what are you?
It sounds uncomfortable just to put pants on, right?
Can't imagine how it would be comfortable.
Okay.
Yeah, like I'm.
All right.
Yeah, stretchy pants for sure.
Aww.
But he got a lot of celebrity
guy.
from it.
Okay.
Like, he did. Like, the whole group got a lot of celebrity from these like cartoonish bodies with these like enormous, like unreal huge chests and shoulders and gargantuan genitals. It's like for my aesthetic, it's not attractive to me, but you know, it's somebody's thing, clearly.
Yeah. Sure. Okay.
Yeah. So, okay. Up until now, we have all been thinking like some kind of way about this, right? Like, Dylan's a piece of shit. But so far, where's the crime? At this point, I will note that, since this is a true crime podcast, that injecting people with silicone is illegal. Like, really, really illegal. Like, punishable by double digits in prison. Illegal.
What was he just like doing this in his living room, or was he going to like a clinic?
Oh, we'll get there.
Oh, okay. Okay. I was going to say, because that makes a difference.
It makes a huge difference. Yeah. Yeah. Because who was doing it and where makes an enormous difference, right? Legally speaking.
Got it. Yeah.
So injecting silicone is illegal, like super illegal. It's a felony. And if someone dies while you're in the process of committing a felony, depending on the state you're in, it falls under the felony murder doctrine, which automatically makes it murder. Even if the death was an accident, if that accident happened as a direct result of you committing a felony, it's murder. And injecting someone with silicone is a felony. In fact, in Washington, that is the case.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. There's lists of crimes. But yeah, if somebody dies while you're in the commission of a felony, it pops up to like 2nd-degree murder.
Shit.
Yep.
But right now they're still in San Francisco.
Right now they're still in San Francisco. Yes. So injecting silicone is also dangerous. To quote a BuzzFeed article, doctors are generally aghast at the procedure, which poses significant danger to those who undergo it. Free-floating silicone is often causes severe inflammation. It can enter the bloodstream, usually at the time of the injection, or migrate later into the lymphatic system. Bigger globules block blood vessels and kill tissue or clog the machinery of the lungs and brain, depriving a person of oxygen and causing permanent damage or death. The article described silicone as Jell-O that has set up in a sponge. The only way to get rid of it is to remove the tissue.
Oh my God.
So large quantities of medical grade injectable silicone are really hard to come by. Medical grade injectable silicone, like they only use it in certain procedures involving your eyeballs. Like it's not like you don't get this stuff in large quantities. Yes. It's
not the same kind of silicone that you would get for like breast implants or something?
No.
Okay.
That silicone, I'm not even sure what the legality of those breast implants is anymore, but even that was contained. It wasn't just like injected into you. So.
Okay. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause those breast implants had to rupture to cause damage. So because it's hard to get large quantities of medical grade injectable silicone, people often use, other more hazardous substances like, industrial lubricant and some other things that are nasty. But here's the thing. Dylan was getting large quantities of medical grade injectable silicone somewhere. And he was either forcing his pups to inject it or he was injecting it into them himself.
Fuck.
The group left San Francisco and moved to Seattle. We don't know exactly when they moved, but we know they were in Seattle by December of 2016. They were under a lot of societal scrutiny in San Francisco for how Dylan treated his group. He was verbally abusive, emotionally manipulative, and there were a lot of public fights. And this dynamic in the BDSM community is pretty rare. Dylan was getting a lot of negative attention in the San Francisco kink community because he was not handling this responsibly and appropriately. And it's a small group. You know, it's not the heteronormative lifestyle. It's a small group. And if they want to run you out of town, they're going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing in my very limited knowledge of like the BDSM community is they are real fucking serious about their rules and taking care of each other.
Yep. Because they're,
and so, it's not,
it's hard to get more
because
marginalized.
It's necessary,
of course.
You know?
Yeah. Cause if you don't, then any abuser out there could just be like, oh, it's BDSM. It's our thing, and then just go home and beat his wife.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Like that's not how this works.
But kudos to the community for acknowledging when it's fucked. Like, no, that's not what we're about.
Yeah, they'll call it out.
Jeez. Okay.
So
good for them.
When the group got to Seattle, Tank finally executed his exit strategy and he left. He left Dylan. He left in March of 2017. In Tank's own words, quote, "I reached the limit of what I could take. He was being emotionally abusive, making me feel awful constantly, walking on eggshells, spending all my mental energy keeping him happy and failing."
Oh my God.
And when Tank left, Dylan refused to give him the key to his chain collar. So he was stuck with this chain around his neck.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So Tank had support from his friends. He did have friends. When he left the relationship, he was basically homeless, but there are remaining texts between Tank and his friends where his friends are telling him they will give him whatever support he needs to stay out from under Dylan's thumb, including keeping him off the streets. So he was couch surfing. There's a video of his friend Armand cutting his chain off at a Home Depot with bolt cutters right there in the store. And they both look very happy
Jesus
when that
Christ.
chain comes off. Yeah. So kudos to Armand for grabbing those bolt cutters off the shelf and cutting some bolts and putting them back on the shelf. That's what he did.
Oh my God. That is a good friend. We're doing this here in aisle 8.
Here in aisle 8. That's right. Hopefully on the way out the door, they weren't like, are you going to pay for that chain?
Nope.
You can put this back on the shelf. For. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't realize this was in my cart. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was just here for this piece of poplar. You can have this chain back. So at that time, Dylan threatened to take Tank to small claims court to get his portion of the rent, which Dylan had promised Tank was a gift, but which unexpectedly turned into a loan when Tank left. Dylan was supposed to be giving Tank time to find a job after moving to Seattle, so he was covering his rent until that happened. The $4,700 in back rent that Dylan threatened to sue for would have completely wiped out Tank's escape fund. And since Tank was defying him...
He had an escape fund? Mm-hmm. This poor guy.
He had an escape fund.
Oh, no. Okay.
Yeah. So he knew pretty quickly on that this isn't what he had signed up for. And yeah.
Yeah, no shit.
And since Tank was defying him, Dylan also threatened to sue if Tank talked about the relationship, because apparently there was an NDA. So you not only sign a waiver when you hook up with this guy, you sign a non-disclosure agreement. Don't sign these.
What the fuck is in it for Tank?
Right?
Like, isn't there supposed to be like a give and take? Like, what's in it for him so far?
I think what was...
That this guy's pretty?
He was pretty. That's not enough, though. But I think for Tank, he was expecting it to be what he thought a master-pup relationship was going to be, which is he would submit to his master, and in return, he would get somebody who would look after him and take care of him and, support him when he needed it and comfort him when he needed it, and the things that you would do if you had that position over somebody, And if you have that...
This guy sounds like he's so fucking full of himself that he doesn't have to have anything on his end of the bargain.
Right, exactly.
That he's just fucking cute, and that's good enough.
And he's got an online following, and everybody fawns over him, and so, yeah.
What a dick.
He's a dick.
Okay.
So he also provided Tank with an itemized list of every gift he'd given him and the price of each gift.
That's literally not how a gift works.
Right. It also means that he'd been keeping that list the entire time because he knew he would have to use it as leverage at some point.
What an asshole.
He's an asshat. So Tank went back to Dylan.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as he went back to Dylan, he texted out a strange apology to his friends. This one's a rough one. The apology read this, quote, "I just wanted to express to you that in the past I have said things about Master Dylan that have been unfair, cruel, and mean. Over time, I have come to recognize that I am the origin of so much of the hurt that has existed between him and I feel that in trying to make things better, I need to take responsibility for some of the things that I have done and take back some of the hurtful things that I have said about him. Everything I said was more than just spite. They were malicious lies with the intention of damaging both him and his reputation. Master Dylan has done nothing wrong except making the mistake of trusting me. And for that, I am sorry."
Oh, no. God.
And as soon as he sent out that apology...
Such a fucking manipulation.
Yeah. As soon as he sent out that apology, Dylan forbade Tank from ever having any further contact with his friends.
Wow. Okay.
So, Tank Heathcliff Hafertepen was admitted into the hospital on Tuesday, October 9th, 2018. Swedish, right up here on Capitol Hill. He was in acute respiratory distress and placed in a medically induced coma. Tank was suffering from the effects of silicone injection syndrome. The silicone had traveled to his lungs, where it was blocking the oxygenated blood from reaching his lung cells, subsequently causing the lung tissue to die, thus depriving the rest of his organs of oxygenated blood. Rumors began circulating throughout the online kink community of Tank's worsening condition, but Tank got on social media the following Tuesday, the 16th of October, and told everyone he was fine and that the rumors of the condition weren't true. He said he was rather upset about the rumors and he wanted to find out who was spreading them. except that Tank Heathcliff Hafertepen had died on Monday, October 15th, 2018.
I was just going to ask that. I'm like, you just said he was in a coma and now he's on the socials?
He had been dead for a day when those social media posts were made, ostensibly by him saying he was fine.
Oh, my. Uh-huh. Fuck.
He'd also been dead for a day before Dylan informed his mother of his passing. And that's when the scrub began. Dylan began covering his tracks, deleting his blog posts, his Tumblr posts, his Facebook posts, his tweets. He deleted his Reddit account, but there are screenshots where he admits he enjoys, quote, breaking men. He was a senior software engineer at Google, and he even began fooling the search algorithm so that anyone who searched for noodles and beef just got recipe sites. And if they added in the word silicone, they would get articles comparing turkey basters. So you couldn't even Google him.
Holy shit.
Yeah. You couldn't even
Oh my
Google
God.
him anymore. He had millions of followers, and all that was left at this point of his huge online celebrity empire were just screenshots that people had bothered to keep. Jack's mom went on Australian TV. It's like one of these news programs, Australian Dateline, to confront Dylan about what he'd done to Jack. And it went about as smoothly as one might expect. Jack's mom was furious, and Dylan was smug. A lot of people have criticized the show for being sensationalistic and of generalizing and caricaturing the kink community. And really,
this actually sounds like an uncomfortable episode of like Dr. Phil.
Yeah, and they were right. Like it did generalize and caricature the kink. It did. I watched the episode and I'm like, yeah, they sensationalized that. Which was sad because like I'm sitting there watching this program and I'm like, it's I think we should remember sometimes that like somewhere in between this mother's anger at losing her son and this like smug narcissist celebrity, internet celebrity is like this dead man who just wanted someone to like him, and that gets lost a lot in those things. It's like he just wanted his celebrity idol to notice him and be nice to him, and here he is, right?
Yeah.
So one thing of note, which was brought up in the program, is that when Jack's dad died some years prior to Jack moving to the U.S., he had left what money he'd worked for and saved up to Jack and his brother. Each of them got $200,000. 3 weeks before Jack's death, he wrote a revised will, leaving everything to Dylan. 3 weeks.
What the fuck?
And the timing of that is awfully goddamn suspicious. So the question is, who injected Jack? We don't know whether he died of a recent injection or one that was done in San Francisco and had leaked out over time. For all we know, Dylan could have just killed him by puncturing one of his silicone injection sites. The will Jack made 3 weeks before he died seems to suggest that Dylan knew something. Jack was cremated 2 days after he died, which is extremely fast. So even if someone wanted to do an investigation, the biggest piece of evidence was gone.
Who made that decision? Because Dylan's not his spouse. Wouldn't the next of kin be his mom?
One would think.
Like, how did that happen?
I don't know. I did not find that information. All I found was the information that he had been cremated 2 days after he died, but I found nothing that said who made.
Oh my God.
Because that was my first thought. I'm like, well, why? Why?
Yeah.
Right? Like, he had to skip to the front of the line.
Fuck? Yeah.
Yeah. So Jack's own texts say that Dylan had procured and supplied the silicone. He even supplied some receipts because Dylan had given Jack an invoice for every gift he'd ever given to him, right? And
of course,
right,
keeping a tab.
Exactly. And silicone was on that invoice. Yeah.
What a dick. This thing that he requested as being something he needed was tacked on to this guy's tab. Oh my God.
So we don't know who injected Jack with the silicone. We know Dylan paid for the silicone. We know Dylan supplied the silicone. And Dylan knows who injected that silicone for sure. In September 2019, Jack's mother and her son, Ben, filed suit against Dylan Hafertepen and the remaining members of his group for the wrongful death of Jack Chapman. And here's where you thought things were already weird. Right? Because, yeah, I mean, you might think we have a bow on this story because I've provided you with bookends.
No, there's no bow.
Yeah, the bookends are there, but we are not done because then the Tumblr posts and the Reddit posts began flying, saying things like, another one, and I can't believe this happened again, and I've been warning about this guy for years. And, of course, people were like, what do you mean, another one? People in Seattle hadn't heard about a previous death. As far as they knew, Dylan and his pups were just floating around Tumblr, being their pack. In early 2017, a man by the name of Peter Dovak, who himself was a bit of an internet celebrity at the time, flew to California to meet with a man named Joseph Quaidar. Quaidar wasn't a doctor. He was just a guy with a really good supply of black market, medical grade injectable silicone. And Peter Dovak was going to him to get injections. The person who had put Dovak in contact with Quaidar.
Dylan?
Mm-hmm. But it was more than just putting them in contact with each other, because despite him later claiming he wasn't there when Dovak was getting his injections, there is a screenshot of a tweet where Dylan himself plainly states that Dovak was getting cold feet, but that Dylan egged him to go bigger.
Oh, no.
Peter Dovak died on November 16th, 2017. He was 30 years old. And at that time, there was not really any scrutiny on Dylan. Not only had he already moved with his pups to Seattle when Peter Dovak died, but he'd orchestrated Dovak's injections so that if anything went wrong, Joseph Quaidar would be legally to blame. And seeing that Dylan made sure Quaidar was set up to be legally responsible in case something went wrong, it means he knew something could go wrong. So Dylan egged Peter on knowing he could die, which means that before Jack died, Dylan already knew the dangers of injecting silicone.
Yeah, he'd already done this before.
Yeah, he'd done this before.
God.
So the day before Joseph Quaidar was supposed to be arrested for manslaughter, his lawyer tipped him off that the police were coming for him, and he took his own life.
Oh, no.
So here's the thing. We don't know where Joseph Quaidar was getting his supply of medical grade silicone. But even after Quaidar died, Dylan and his pups were injecting silicone, which means Dylan definitely knows where that supply chain is. Mm-hmm. So there were a lot of crimes committed in this chain of events that led to these men dying. And even if Dylan isn't guilty of all of them, he knows goddamn well who is.
Yeah.
What else we don't know is where Dylan Hafertepen is now. He disappeared into the woodwork, has no social media accounts. He is untraceable through any of the online people search websites, even the good ones. And the last bit of information we have is that he and his pups headed east, and that is as much as we know. And you would think they would stick out like sore thumbs, but the grapevine is silent.
Holy shit.
It is worth mentioning that they headed east right about the time the pandemic was hitting, and we were all getting these shelter-in-place orders. And Dylan is a smart guy. Google had let him go after the stranger published an article squarely putting him at the center of these deaths. But he was a senior software engineer. He could still clear a criminal background check. He hadn't been charged with anything. So he could easily have gotten another job working from home. And if he and his pups were someplace where people don't follow news like this, he could be anywhere just living his life and doing his thing. And as we know, legal name changes are easy. There are people who were involved with Dylan still living in Seattle. And maybe some of them know where he is, and maybe they don't. But since the cops aren't investigating a crime, no one's asking.
Holy shit. Oh my God.
That is the story of Jack Chapman.
Wow. Well, that was fucking dark.
That's because we're heading into the dark time of year.
Yeah, I wonder what Jack's parents think about the fact that he's not been charged with anything.
Yeah, so there's a lot online now. Not a lot of firsthand receipts of the events in the story. I had to piece that together from a lot of things, but Like if you search the story, there are a lot of websites out there, and most of them are Justice for Jack websites. Like Jack's mom is not the only one that's not happy how this turned out. There's a lot of people that are like, you need to charge this motherfucker.
No shit. And I'm sorry, forgive me. What was the other man's name who passed away from injections?
Peter Dovak.
Peter. Do you know if Jack's family and Peter's family have formed some kind of alliance at least?
I don't know. The last thing that I saw about Peter Dovak was an interview that someone had done with him before Jack died.
God.
And
this guy. Oh my God.
He pretty well thinks that Dylan is a piece of shit.
Of course. Oh my God.
And it was sad too because Peter Dovak's partner kept telling him like that he looked fine. Like he kept like trying to like tell him, look, there's nothing wrong with you. You look fine. He said that Peter had the worst body dysmorphia of anyone he'd ever met.
And did he have that prior to meeting Dylan?
Don't know.
Because it's this whole thing of like beating somebody down,
right?
You know?
Yeah.
And oh my God, it's so manipulative and gross and awful.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'll give you my sources here in a second, but I thought I should be responsible and read this because in my research of this story, I did run across a blurb that I think I should read here. It's from one of the websites, from one of the guys that had chronicled as much as he could. It says, talk about abuse with your friends and family. It can be hard to recognize even when it's happening to you, but the Center for Relationship Abuse Awareness has a good checklist of warning signs. If you or someone you know is scared to leave a relationship, if threats or coercion continues after you've withdrawn consent, if your partner isolates you from your support network, check with a friend, make a plan, get help. And there is a link to that checklist.
We can put that in the show notes. That's interesting because, like, very early on in your story, I was like, this is not a kink. This is just domestic violence. Right. And
this story was hard because when I first decided to do it, I'm like, okay, I'm going to tell the story about this Kinkster that died and whatever. And then the more I dove into it, I'm like, this is kind of gross, and it just gets grosser. And then like, it kind of just like punched me in the gut one day that I'm like, this dude died like 2 miles from where I live while I was living here.
Yeah.
Like I'm sitting in my apartment, just doing my thing, have no connection to this community at all. And this dude is like 2 miles away at Swedish, just like dying of lung failure.
Fuck. God, it's so fucked up.
That kind of sucked. I'm like, oh. So that's when I'm like, oh yeah, that's when I texted you. I'm like, hey, do these stories ever like fuck you up? And you're like, yeah, they do.
All the time. All the time. Yeah, but local ones for sure. It's like, wow. Yeah. The proximity and all that is jarring sometimes. Yeah.
So my sources are millions. I've got a dozen of them here. Rolling Stone, BuzzFeed, The Stranger, Tumblr, The New York Post, The Daily Beast, Vice News, Twitter, Reddit, Queerty, WordPress, and Legacy.com. Legacy.com is where I got to read Peter Dovak's obituary.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's so terrible. Oh, poor Peter.
Yeah, poor Peter.
Poor Jack. That's terrible.
And Dylan is out there. And I'm like, so as I'm doing the story, cause I'm kind of fucked up. So even after, I'm like, oh, this really sucks. And this is bad. And I feel for these guys as I'm like getting to the end of the story. I'm like, and again, I want to point out that I am fucked up. I'm like, I hope this turns into an urban legend. Like I hope 20 years from now, like kids are sitting around in the room and they're like, oh, you better be careful or Dylan will inject your balls with silicone. He'll come out of the night.
No shit. Right. Have you heard about the large testicle boogeyman?
That's the only good outcome for this. Your balls will start to grow. And
you know what? If Jack can have some notoriety, then good for him. That's the least we can do for him. Let's start a trend.
We got to get rid of the
boogeyman.
The guy with the hook for
balls.
a hand. He's tired.
He's out.
We need silicone injection ball guy.
Yep, it's large testicle ball guy now. He will come for you in your dreams, and you better watch out. Yep.
You can hear him scruffing along.
Oh my God! Like you can hear him chasing as he walks. Oh my God! Watch out, or he will inject you too. So dark.
He's the mascot of Big Pharma.
I feel like, also too, it's like, is Dylan, he's the mascot of Big Pharma. Is Dylan injecting his balls? Because I think he should.
Somebody was injecting his balls. They're huge. Yeah. Although I did read, must have been a Twitter post where he said that he had, had some removed because he'd been having some complications.
Oh, some health issues? You don't say.
I said it.
Fuck that guy.
Fuck that guy.
Okay, well, that was bleak. Thank you for that. Do you need a refill? How are you doing?
I'm good.
No?
Yeah. I'm also, I also feel like when I send you pictures, just as a big fuck you to Dylan, I'm going to send you the picture that I found of him when he was a scrawny 140-pound high school student, skinny as shit, and that's what he deserves,
and probably adorable, and also Dylan. Oh, I thought we were talking about
Dylan.
Tank. But you know what? Please don't send me pictures of testicles.
No, I won't send you testicle pictures. They wouldn't fit on your screen.
Okay,
you just got a laptop screen. They're not going to fit on that.
I know. I'm like, this is very pixelated. What are we doing? Oh my God. Oh. Okay, well, I have some chaos for you that I chose specifically for you because I thought it would tickle your media celebrity producer of all things part of your brain. Okay? Okay. Well, let me ask you, because I didn't know the answer to this, and as a child from the 80s, I should have. But do you know who Max Headroom is?
Yes. He did Pepsi commercial shit.
He did. Are you familiar with the Max Headroom incident?
There was an incident. I thought Max Headroom was an incident. What happened?
He was. Okay.
Every time he came on TV, it was an incident. I think he had a TV show for a while too.
He did. And I actually had no idea who this person was. So I'm going to tell the story to the listeners as if they are as ignorant as I, and first tell you who Max Headroom is or was.
Yes, please.
Okay. Was. So he was a fictional AI character. The actor who played him was Matt Frewer. It was created in 1985. He was known for his biting commentary on a whole bunch of issues. He had like this arrogant wit. He stuttered and he had a high-pitched voice. Is this tracking so far?
That tracks. Oh yeah, yes. He was annoying. He was annoying enough that my mom wouldn't let us watch him. So.
Oh really? I have no recollection of this program being on, but when I saw pictures, I was like, that looks like some sort of cartoony version of like Vanilla Ice.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's him. That's the dude.
So he was advertised as a computer-generated figure, but it was the 80s, so he actually wasn't. He was the actor, Matt Frewer, wearing a prosthetic, like massive prosthetic makeup, contact lenses, plastic molded suit, and sitting in front of a blue screen. Harsh lighting and other editing and, recording effects heightened the illusion that he was a CGI character. So it's basically like a human being who has been made up enough to look almost like a cartoon character. Does that sound right?
Yeah, he was creepy looking. Yeah, he was creepy looking. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So according to his creators, Max's personality was meant to be an exaggerated version of the worst tendencies of television hosts in the 80s who wanted to appeal to the youth culture. Yeah? Does that sound right?
Oh, dead on. Yeah. That's a bullseye.
Okay, so help me to understand.
Yeah, they nailed it. They nailed it. If that's what they were aiming for, they managed.
What was he doing? Because I never watched an episode or
I
any
don't
of the
remember,
things.
honestly. Like, I only caught little bits and snippets of Max Headroom because as soon as my mom would hear him, she'd be like, nope. she would nope that dial. She was not having it. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Inappropriate,
he just,
huh?
he just annoyed the shit out of her. And I'm like, whatever. I was 10. So.
I was 5, so I guess that would not
annoying.
have been. Yeah. So it debuted in April of 85 on Channel 4 in Britain. And it was like a cyberpunk TV movie called Max Headroom 20 Minutes into the Future. And that was the thing. That was the movie that told his origin story. Okay. So in the movie, Max Headroom, who was. This is like Superman, right? It's like the difference between being
told his origin story.
Here's
I put a fork in a microwave.
No. You'll appreciate this, actually. You're not too far off. So,
great.
Max Headroom was originally Edison Carter. Okay, he's a journalist and he's fleeing enemies. He's going into a parking garage and he crashes his motorcycle through the entrance barrier. And right before he goes unconscious, he sees the sign hanging from the parking garage ceiling that says Max Headroom 2.3 meters. So at this time, the UK clearance signs said Max Headroom instead of like max height or clearance height. It was Max Headroom.
Yeah.
So he crashes and goes into a coma, and the last thing that he sees,
as a journalist,
is
he was
Max
fleeing
Headroom.
his enemies. Yes,
of course, on a motorcycle into a parking garage. Because where the fuck are you going to go in a parking garage, right?
Right. I'm fleeing my enemies. I should park this thing.
Yeah.
And apparently, his motorcycle exceeded the max headroom. Okay, good.
Yep. He crashes.
Okay.
That's the last thing he sees. While he's unconscious, an AI program based on his mind is created. And so the AI develops a personality identified as Max Headroom. This is what was fed to us in the 80s.
I feel like the passive voice might be a little bit overused there. An AI program that was created. Who created this fucking thing? That passive voice is doing a lot of work there.
The coma created it, okay?
Right. Okay, gotcha. I'm back in. Back in. I just needed an answer. Yeah, I didn't care what it was.
Yeah. So this AI, Max Headroom, becomes a TV host who exists only on broadcast signals and computer systems.
Yes.
He openly challenges the corporations that run his world, but using commentary and sarcastic wit rather than journalism. So, I mean, I can kind of get on board with that.
Yeah. I don't hate that.
But I don't hate it either. But because he's supposed to be AI, so like in the real world, when he's interviewed, like on David Letterman has a TV in the chair where a guest would be. And Matt Frewer is in some green room as Max Headroom. Like, It was actually pretty clever for the 80s.
I recall that.
Have CGI. Yeah. Okay, so that was his whole shtick, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was that you wouldn't actually see him in real life as
right. He was
person,
just on.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You only ever saw him on a TV screen.
Yeah, which is weird. It's just kind of creepy.
It's the only place I ever saw Letterman.
Okay. Well, that's true. But not like a TV on a TV.
No, that's too meta for me.
Exactly. It's very meta.
I can't.
It's very like, what are we doing?
What's happening? Yeah.
Okay. So now we're at November 22nd, 1987 in Chicago. Okay. It's 9:14 p.m. Okay. And it's November, so it's like sports ball season or whatever. We don't care.
Yes.
And there's a sportscaster. Yeah, we don't give two shits about sports ball, but this is what happened. There's a sportscaster on local Channel 9, Dan Rowan. He's going over the highlights of the Bears game from that day. Okay?
The Bears, yeah.
And right in the middle Da Bears, right in the middle. I know that much about sports ball. That's it. The end.
That's all you need to know. That's it. There's nothing else.
Right in the middle of him doing sports ball-y things, the broadcast signal glitches and it goes all, like almost like it's about to be an emergency announcement.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The control room of Channel 9 at WGN, they're all like, what the fuck's happening? Because what's happening at your house right now?
Just a little high-speed chase down my road. It's fine.
Perfect. Dylan's fleeing.
Everything's
fleeing Seattle as we speak. Oh my God. Yeah. Okay, so sports volley broadcast, it glitches. The control room doesn't know what's going on. And back in this day of local TV broadcasting, it was microwave transmissions to antennas at the top of whatever the tallest building was of the city where it was being recorded.
Mm-hmm.
Is this tracking with you so far?
It all tracks.
Great.
Yep.
I'm glad it's tracking with one of us.
That's before we had launched satellites into space.
Yes, exactly. So inside a studio, whatever is being recorded gets beamed to a transmitter on the top of a very tall building, which then bounces off to all of the other transmitters, which is how everyone gets the show on their TV.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. Which is why back in the day they had to read off all of this laundry list of different transmitters because the FCC would make them say every single goddamn transmitter that could. Yeah. It's annoying.
Okay, well, for the record, whatever is a step below layman's terms is where I had to go to understand this story. I just want you to know that.
Word.
I'm
only a step above only because I did radio in college, and that was 53 years ago. So,
okay, well, great. You're still several notches ahead of me because I'm like, what? Okay, so. Okay, so the TV glitches, and then all of a sudden on everybody's screen, you see a guy in a suit wearing a Max Headroom mask. And think about a very upsetting rubber giant Halloween mask of Max Headroom.
It got more upsetting from the real thing?
Yes, this is a guy dressed up as Max Headroom. Mm-hmm, in a rubber mask.
He was already upsetting, and it got worse from. Okay.
Yeah, this is very upsetting. This is very upsetting. All right. So it's. I would encourage you after this to go and watch it because you can.
I'm going to
YouTube it, and it's.
It's that's
creepy.
Yeah, you know it.
So there's no audio, but it seems like there's supposed to be, but there's some sort of a mistake. And the Max Headroom costume person. He's standing against a corrugated metal background that is moving somehow. So it's meant to look like it's upsetting. It's all very upsetting to look at.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
There's a corrugated
look at it.
metal background moving so that it looks digitized when actually it's not, right?
Oh.
It lasts for about 10 seconds. Mm-hmm. Before the WGN engineers switch to a backup transmitter to continue broadcasting their sports ball on a different signal. And when sports ball guy Dan Rowan gets back on the air, he's like, if you're wondering what just happened, so am I. And then he continues on with his broadcast, right? Like, what the fuck just happened?
Right.
Okay. So the FCC, which is the Federal Communications Commission, in case you were wondering.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
They're
called in to investigate. They didn't do jack shit in this. But
they don't ever do anything except for they fine people for saying fuck. That's it. That's as much as these motherfuckers do.
Okay. And these are the same people, if I'm correct, you would know. The little FBI warning, like recording a copy of this is blah, blah, blah. That's the FCC,
that tracks.
Right?
Yeah, that tracks. Yeah.
Okay.
The FCC. It's like,
what are we doing?
They fine people for swearing online when they weren't supposed to or whatever. And then they basically just sit around pushing paper around to make sure that your signal doesn't smash up against somebody else's signal. Like they're nerds.
Okay. Well, we'll go on to see that they weren't nerdy enough at this time, because if this happened today, I bet you could have figured out who did this.
Yeah, this was back in the day when you actually had to
work for the FCC.
You had to pirate things so you could get your message out. And now any dipshit with a computer can just be like, "Oh, I'm on the YouTubes."
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to pirate anything anymore.
Right.
God, the world sucks.
Mm-hmm. It sucks. So that happens during sports ball in Chicago. So the FCC comes in, they're trying to investigate, and their first assumption is that it came from inside the building at WGN.
Dun, dun, dun.
But their investigation determined, the call is coming from inside the house.
Inside the building, yeah.
But their investigation determined that this was not an inside job.
This was a real pirate.
Yeah. Yeah, a 1985 pirate.
Arr.
So it's the same night, about 2 hours later, so it's 11:15 p.m., and on a different channel in Chicago, which was WTTW, which was their version of like PBS, Doctor Who is playing, and it's the episode called Horror at Fang Rock. Doctor Who.
Horror. Okay.
Horror. In the middle of Doctor Who playing, it cuts out again to like a little staticky, wah, 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 like kind of thing, right? And this time, it looks to be the full run of what was intended to be played the first time. So it's the Max Headroom guy. Max Headroom, he's against that corrugated background again in the giant plasticky Max Headroom mask, and this time it runs for 1 minute and 22 seconds. And the audio is hard to decipher. It's also upsetting to listen to and creepy, but I don't think they intended it to be that way. I think it was a bad signal, but it sounds like a person using like a voice altering device that is something between helium and robot, and it's very creepy.
I mean, it's bad planning anyway, because the only people that are going to get more pissed off than sports ball fans when their thing is interrupted are Doctor Who fans. So I mean, you're just picking the wrong audience here, dude. That's the wrong crowd.
But I think that wasn't that was by design. So the costume rubberhead Halloween guy comes on. And this time, the corrugated metal background, it's like moving in waves. Like there are people behind a flimsy corrugated metal thing moving it.
He had
so that it looks almost like, I don't know, like that thing that you see on cartoons when you're being hypnotized and it's swirly thing.
Yeah.
It looks like, it kind of looks like that.
Yep.
And he's talking in this really garbled, poor quality whatever, but it's fucking creepy. So there's been people who, for whatever reason, spent their time deciphering what he's saying, and so when you go to watch it online, there are subtitles. A lot of it is inaudible, but the parts that are deciphered are still sort of nonsense, but it seems to be targeted at WGN, the station. Okay.
Disgruntled employee.
So he makes fun of the Bulls podcaster, sportscaster guy. And the Max Headroom costume guy is holding a rubber penis, and he says, Chuck Swirsky is a frickin' liberal. That's one thing
He couldn't say Chuck Swirsky is a fucking dildo? Come on. This one writes itself, dude. Jesus. Come on, man.
And then, the best part is in a lot of like the PG or the G versions of like watching this online. They don't say that he's holding a dildo. They say that he's holding a marital aid.
Oh, Jesus. He just got this fucking couples counselor wagging around in the air.
Yes.
Dr. Phil's just flopping around in his hand.
Oh
Jesus Christ.
Yes. And then Max Headroom. He drops the marital aid and he picks up a Pepsi, which is supposed to be.
That's Max Headroom's shtick there.
Yes, exactly.
He was in a bunch of Pepsi commercials.
And he starts humming the theme song to a 60s show called Clutch Cargo, which was an animated show that had a real human mouth moving inside of a cartoon, which is also very unsettling. You know what I'm talking about?
I mean, I can picture it only because I used to watch Conan O'Brien back in the day. So I know the human mouth inside of a animated thing, but I do not know that show.
Yeah.
And would not recognize the theme song if somebody sang it to me.
No. Okay, so he goes into that. Then he said, quote, "I just made a giant masterpiece for all the greatest world newspaper nerds," which is what WGN stands for. It's world's greatest newspaper.
And so he finally he pulled them out of their rut and handed them gold.
Yeah.
Yes.
It sounds like a disgruntled employee, but also WGN is like the parent company to the Chicago Tribune newspaper. So then in the middle of this minute and 22-second broadcast interception, it cuts to a new angle, and the dude in the Max Headroom plastic thing is bent over, so his head is out of the camera, so he takes the mask off and holds the mask out so that the mask is still on camera, but his real face is off camera. Okay.
Because he thought it was normal up until this point.
Sure. And then a person, presumably a woman, who can only be seen from her shoulders down, and she's in what was described as an Annie Oakley dress, which is when I had that recovered memory of your Annie Oakley band.
Correct. Yes.
Mind blown, right? So she takes out a fly swatter, and Max Headroom guy pulls his pants down, and she's spanking his ass.
Oh, Jesus Christ, this is chaos.
And then he says, this is so, it's like creepy.
He ruined his legacy with the fly swatter. That's all I'm saying. He had me up until then.
I know. While he's being spanked, he says, "They're coming to get me. Come get me, bitches." And then, just like that, it goes back to Doctor Who.
Oh, this guy. I want to meet him. There should be a plexiglass between us when we do. But
I mean, it's fucking spooky.
A little spooky.
It's spooky to watch. I encourage you to watch it.
Oh, yeah, that's happening. That is so happening. You know it.
So, over the next couple days in Chicago, everybody is talking about what the fuck this was, right? And they're like, what just happened? And local Chicago residents are being interviewed in the streets. You know how newscasters will do, like, what did you think of that? Blah, blah, blah.
Man on the street. What do you think of? Yeah.
Some people thought it was funny and some people were pissed, but most people were like confused, right?
That's fair.
Like, what was this hoax?
That's fair.
What fucking happened?
Yeah, the people who were pissed were the people trying to watch Doctor Who. Yeah.
There was one lady, and I wish I would have quoted her, but she was so mad that Doctor Who got interrupted.
See, I'm telling you.
This is 1985. If you miss it, you miss it.
Yeah. The only people that were going to be more pissed off than the sports fans were the Doctor Who fans. I'm telling you.
So the FCC and the FBI and Chicago PD are all involved because this is technically a federal offense.
Right.
So at the time, their 1985 knowledge was to figure out, as far as they got was that they did determine that this was a pre-taped thing, right? That was somehow intercepted, and they don't know how. And they still think that it came from inside the WGN studios. And so they're trying to find evidence that somebody patched into the system with a recorded tape.
Right.
But they don't find anything indicating an inside job. They said that since it was an outside job, this would require someone having a lot of knowledge and very expensive equipment and a lot of electricity, because that was the only way that this could have happened outside of the studio.
I hope.
That's what they thought at the time.
I hope that you are about to tell me that they called in the real Max Headroom. Because that's how this should go.
They should have. No, he only gets hauled in on a TV, and they couldn't do that. So
God damn it.
So
I had one job.
So at the time, they're looking for a very specific person who has a lot of money and equipment and the know-how of how to do this, which you think they could really dwindle that down to a small. It's Chicago, which is a huge city, but still they could have zeroed in on somebody that fit that criteria, but they didn't.
Right.
And it wasn't until 30 years later that a representative from the FCC said that actually the equipment itself could have been purchased real cheap. Like we're talking like Radio Shack. And it actually didn't require a ton of electricity, but what it did require was someone being up very high, intercepting those waves at the time ran between the studio and the top. So at the time, WGN was being broadcasted off of the top of John Hancock Building in Chicago because it was the highest tower, sending out those waves to all of the viewers at home, right?
Yeah.
So they could have, if they had known that then, been able to triangulate a little bit and just looked for a person that was sitting on a rooftop that was higher than the John Hancock building, putting in their tape and intercepting those waves. But they didn't know that then.
But if that's the tallest building, who's going to be taller than that? Who's going to need a Cessna?
Well, in Chicago, yeah. So they were also able to triangulate a little bit where this person might have been because the WTTW, which was the PBS where Doctor Who was being shot, and the WGN where Sports Ball Guy was being shot, and the highest tower in between those two was the Sears Tower.
Oh. So not high enough to interrupt Sports Ball, but high enough to interrupt Doctor Who.
So it was likely that whoever was doing this in real time was sitting on top of the Sears Tower, intercepting the John Hancock building. But they didn't know that then.
Batman.
Yeah. But for the most part, the FCC sort of stopped investigating because it was a relatively harmless crime.
Right.
And they weren't very concerned about it. It was just annoying. So even though, of course, they later learned how radio waves work and all that shit, they never really put a whole lot into investigating. And obviously after whoever did that popped in their tape on the top of the Sears Tower, he packed up and left. And there was no evidence.
Right.
So to this day, 30 years later, it is still completely unknown who did this. Nobody ever came forward. Nobody ever snitched. They have no idea who did that.
I'm glad.
And that was the Max Headroom incident of intercepting
I'm glad,
the broadcast.
I'm glad that whoever did that is still at large, knowing only him and two other people knowing that they pulled off the world's best prank.
I
am glad.
You have got to go watch it. It's kind of creepy.
I'm going to watch it. Yeah. I'm totally going to watch it. Why isn't this guy a cult hero at this point?
I mean, he kind of is, but it's unfortunate.
Yeah, we're starting it. Yeah.
He's anonymous, though, which kind of sucks.
That's, that's the way
or she. It was a giant rubber mask.
You know what?
A she.
Boom. Yeah. If you gave me the choice between Max Headroom guy being at large or Dylan Hafertepen being at large, I'd pick Max Headroom being at large.
Well, I will say in the video, when fake Max Headroom pulls down their britches, it's a very smooth ass. It could have been a woman. There's not a lot of hair going on there. I'm just saying.
I'm going to have to zoom in on that. Further research is required.
And being fly swatted in the ass by Annie Oakley. There it is.
Yeah, I'm going to watch this. I'm going to watch this.
Weird. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'm in.
Real quick, my sources were the podcast Stuff You Should Know, which if you don't listen to Stuff You Should Know, what are you even doing? It's like every weird thing you could ever think of where you're like, I wonder what that was about. They'll tell you. It's really well researched and funny. Wikipedia, All That's Interesting, WBUR, and Cyber News.
Damn.
Those are my sources.
I love that.
Damn. That's the Max Headroom incident.
I love that fake Max Headroom is still out there.
I do too. And then
doing whatever they do.
Some sort of weird genius figured out how to intercept broadcasting in 1985.
Right?
Or 1987, whichever. Yeah, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like, yeah.
Yep. And that he outsmarted the FCC, he or she.
Right. Well, I mean,
pretty fucking cool.
From the sounds of it, that wasn't hard to do.
No. I mean, I could see where, it wasn't hard to do.
I mean,
but I wouldn't.
Doing the deed
I wouldn't have
was
known
hard,
that.
But yeah. Doing the deed was hard, but
to know how
outsmarting the
to
FCC.
position. Yeah, but to position yourself in a spot where you can intercept both stations.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, that was pretty smart. And knowing that you have to be just higher than them to intercept the waves, that's pretty fucking smart.
Honestly, when you think about it, the only person that could have even known how to do that would have been an AI. An actual AI. A real AI.
This is art imitating life. Imitating life.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
That's some Matrix shit right there.
It really is. Well, fuck. I'm glad that you hadn't heard of that. I was worried that you had.
Never heard of it.
I'm glad that you know it now.
I am too. Yeah. I have not heard the name Max Headroom since 1988. I think Max Headroom made an appearance in one of the Back to the Future movies. I'm almost certain of it. Yeah, like the second one with the hover things. Yeah.
The hoverboard.
Yeah,
okay, do you ever feel really old when you see things that are that actually exist now that were in the Back to the Future movies?
Like time machines.
Like we have hoverboards now.
Yeah, we have DeLoreans now.
Makes me feel real fucking old.
Yep. Yeah. We don't have Jaws 27.
Well, thanks for podcasting with me. I fucking love all of this.
It's been a pleasure.
I've had too much wine and not enough food. Sometime. Yeah, we will.
I got to go make sure my so looping back around to the guy that bought me the lantern, Shin. Mm-hmm. He texted me right before I had to come on the podcast to let me know that he thinks he might have a concussion. So I should probably go check on him.
Yeah, go check on your friend.
I said, don't fall asleep. Yeah.
We need more of those beautiful lanterns.
Yep.
Which
I
can't
need my friend to
happen
not
if we get concussed too hard.
Yeah.
I fucking love you.
I love you too. I'll see you on Saturday. That sounds correct.
Saturday. Yep. I'll be there.
Saturdays. Okay.
All right. Well, this was fucking chaotic.
Yeah. Go force your adult child to do dishes or something.
Oh my God. If I knew how to do that, I would have done it by now.
That's fair. That's fair. I can't.
All right.
I can't force my cat how to do dishes either. So whatever.
You could train your cat. Have you seen Meet the Fockers? That cat uses the toilet.
I have not seen Meet the Fockers.
Okay.
That's too highbrow for me.
And then toilet train your cat.
Okay.
All right. Go watch Max Headroom.
I'm gonna go check on Shin first to make sure he's awake.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Crime, Wine, and Chaos. Artwork by Erica Peterson. Music by Paul Abner. Audio editing by Amber Clifton. We are on Facebook at Crime, Wine, and Chaos and on Instagram at Crime, Wine, and Chaos Pod. If you would like to support the show or submit a listener story, you can visit our website at crimewineandchaos.com for our Patreon link and listener story submission. Cheers!